Ladies and gentlemen, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all our viewers around the world. I'm sure you have a restful night or day, whatever the case may be. And we are now, after a very successful first day's conference activities, we are now starting the second day. Today, we are going to honor the pioneers of Punjab Research Group, PRG, in the United Kingdom. The origins of this group go back to the major crisis in Sikh life in the aftermath of the tragic events of 1984, marked by the Indian Army's attack on the Golden Temple complex at Amritsar in June 1984, resulting in Prime Minister Indira Gandhi's assassination in October of the same year, followed by the wholesale massacre of the Sikhs in Delhi and the rise in Sikh militancy in the Punjab. For almost a decade after the events of 1984, the Sikhs worldwide were undergoing a traumatic experience. This was the highly inflamed political context in which scholars were trying to develop an intellectual understanding of the Sikh tradition through the lens of the Punjab crisis. As a matter of fact, Sikh history, religion, and culture attracted considerable attention from the world at large. Journalists and commentators were looking for information about the Sikhs. Their stereotypical reports, however, highlighted the extent to which scholars failed them. Mostly, common people in North America and the UK were utterly uneducated about the nature of Sikh religion and culture. They were further confused by the varying responses of the Sikhs themselves. It is in this historical context that a group of scholars in the UK got together and formed the Punjab Research Group, PRG. They focused their attention on East Punjab in India, West Punjab in Pakistan, and the Punjabi diaspora in different countries. Today, we will honor the pioneers and listen to each one of them to tell their own stories and contribution in their own voice. Ours is a small effort to recognize the individuals for their outstanding contribution in the field of Sikh and Punjab studies. I will now ask my doctoral student to introduce the first scholar of Punjab Research Group.
So our first honoree from the Punjab Research Group is Dr. Eleanor Nesbitt. She's a Professor Emeritus of Religions and Education at the University of Warwick in the UK and a co-editor of Brill's Encyclopedia of Sikhism. In 1984, she co-founded the Punjab Research Group. Her ethnographic studies have focused on the religious socialization of young people in a range of Sikh, Hindu, and Christian communities, as reported in her book, Intercultural Education, Ethnographic and Religious Approaches, and also on identity formation in mixed faith families. In 2016, her book, Sikhism, A Very Short Introduction, appeared in its second edition. Recent publications include Pool of Life, the autobiography of a Punjabi Agni aunt, her book, Sikh, 2 Centuries of Western Women's Art and Writing, provides a narrative of Sikh religion and history through the eyes of 150 European and North American women. Dr. Nesbitt, if you would like to say a few words, we also invite you to share the screen and to say a few words.
Hello, can you hear and see me?
Yes.
I just want to say thank you very much indeed to everybody, to Dr. Pashora Singh and to everybody who's been involved in this award, which is a tremendous honour, and it was a great surprise to me to hear about it, and everyone who's been involved in organising this online conference. Even if it were not for COVID, I wouldn't be able to come in person. So for me, it's a wonderful blessing to have this Zoom link. And I say hello to my many friends who I think are out there, though I can't see you. The Punjab Research Group, PRG, has been a strand of my life since 1984, because as far as I can remember, I've been not just a founder member, but a convener for some years, a treasurer, and a reviews editor for the journal, which Shinder mentioned yesterday as springing out of the activity of the Punjab Research Group. I can't stress enough the importance of the Punjab Research Group as an arena for scholars whose concern is East Punjab or West Punjab or the diaspora, and who may themselves come from any of those parts of the Punjabi world. An arena for them to get together in friendship and solidarity, mutually supporting each other, whatever's been going on in the subcontinent or in terms of community relations in different parts of the diaspora. And it's been wonderful to see the range of subjects and to be part of the interdisciplinarity. Looking through past papers, I could see that we'd ranged over Punjabi literature in Punjab and in diaspora, gender, for example, women's education. There have been papers presented on Dalit issues, on economics and agriculture, music, secular and sacred, languages, Punjabi and Urdu notably, business and entrepreneurship, sunts, shared shrines, guga, religion, to use that Western term that's much maligned. We've looked at the medieval period, we've looked at colonial Punjab, Jallianwala Bagh, Khalistan, human rights, art, architecture, it goes on and on. And Shinder Thandi yesterday remembered the conferences in 1994 and 1999. Well, there were also conferences at other times as well, and I'd like to mention the ones in 2009 and 2014, which marked 25 and 30 years of the group, and to particularly pay tribute to Dr. Pippa Virdi of De Montfort University in Leicester in the UK for her huge contribution to PRG, giving it an online presence, and in fact in 2009 organising meetings not just in the UK but in Lahore and in Patiala in February and December of that year. I think of past presenters, people who've made the Punjab Research Group. For example, as I've been working on my book that's about to come out sometime fairly soon on Sikhs through the art and writing of Western women, I've been very aware of Honoria Lawrence, and I've thought very much of Harold Lee, a former member, he's no longer with us, who presented and then published a book on the Lawrence brothers and their role in the paternalistic administration of colonial Punjab. And he was a huge help to me, I remember, during my years as convener in all sorts of ways. And I think of Roger Ballard, somebody else who's no longer with us, but who made such a tremendous impression on the field, particularly because my work has been in the area of religious studies, on bringing a more anthropological understanding to the dynamics of religiosity, spiritual activity, and so on in Punjab, using the terms of Panth and Kismet and Qawm rather than the Europe-centered terms that we were used to. I'd also like to say how important it is being in Coventry in the UK. This is where Punjab Research Group was founded. It's where many of the meetings have happened, thanks to Coventry University. And it feels very appropriate to be paying tribute to Coventry, just as we embark on our delayed year as the UK City of Culture. And of course, Punjabi culture is very much part of our culture and our heritage. I think you realised yesterday from presentations how particularly important a research group like this has been in the absence, at least in the UK, of chairs and departments and centres of Punjab, or for that matter, Sikh Studies. And I want to just reiterate before I finish the importance of the friendships, the many, many friendships across generations, across disciplines, often between senior academics and starting out researchers. And I'm looking forward to the next meeting of Punjab Research Group as a highlight of this year, I hope. Thank you very much to everyone again.
Thank you. The Dr. Jasbir Singh Saini Endowed Chair in Sikh and Punjabi Studies honors Eleanor Nesbitt with a Lifetime Achievement Award for her distinguished contribution to the Punjab Research Group in the UK to promote Sikh and Punjab studies. Riverside, California, Saturday, May 8th, 2021. Congratulations, Eleanor.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations once again, Dr. Nesbitt, and thank you for your words. I look forward to hearing actually all of these honorees and to hear more about the Punjab Research Group and the insight that you offered. It's amazing for me to hear as a up and coming scholar. And for those who are returning from yesterday, you heard an amazing presentation from our next honoree, Dr. Gurharpal Singh. He's a political scientist who completed his undergraduate and PhD degrees at the LSE. He was the Dean of the Faculty of Arts and Humanities at SOAS, University of London, from 2011 to 2017. He is currently Professor Emeritus of Sikh and Punjabi Studies. Professor Singh's main research interest is the modern politics of India and Pakistan, Sikhs and Punjab, religious nationalism, ethnicity, and multiculturalism, and religions and development in Asia and Africa. He is the author of Communism in Punjab, The Partition of India, Sikhs in Britain and Ethnic Conflict in India. He was the original founder of the Punjab Research Group, a founding member of the International Journal of Punjab Studies and Sikh Formations, Religion, Culture, and Theory. Congratulations, Dr. Singh, on your achievements, and I would like to invite you now to share a few words.
I want to begin by thanking you, Professor Peshawar Singh, and your colleagues for nominating me for this award. I have been in the past nominated for some awards, which I've refused, but this is the one I had no hesitation in accepting. I'm also delighted that the awardees include my colleague, Professor Ian Talbot, who has been a wonderful collaborator, a great academic, and a distinguished contributor to the field of Punjab studies. In the absence of a generally recognized professional association of Sikh studies, Professor Peshawar Singh, you and your colleagues have played a very distinguished role in publicly recognizing scholars' work and contribution to the field. Thank you to you and your colleagues for undertaking this public-spirited role. For myself, I retired from SOAS last year, and it's only now I'm beginning to reflect on what happened in the past. It's been a long journey, and it's been a great privilege since the early 1980s to have been associated with the Punjab Research Group, the International Journal of Punjab Studies, and later Sikh formations. In the late 1990s, I and perhaps a few others outgrew the Punjab Research Group and the International Journal of Punjab Studies. And we found a different home in different institutions but principally in Sikh formations. In 2025, Sikh formations will mark its 20th anniversary. And I should like to acknowledge publicly the great contribution of Professor Arvind Pal Mandir at the University of Michigan, his vision and his determination, and indeed his hard work in making the journal so successful. I remain to be corrected, but it's my impression that Sikh formations remains, and I choose my words very carefully, remains the only academic journal in Sikh studies published by a mainstream academic publisher in the West or South Asia. For a community of 25 million, this is an astounding fact, and it should be reflected upon in any debates about the development of Sikh studies as a field or any glib generalizations about mainstream. As for the future challenges, I will not speak retrospectively about the Punjab Research Group, but make just 3 brief comments about Sikh studies. Firstly, based on Mark Juergensmeyer's fascinating interviews, I think the leading colleagues in the field, hopefully the professoriate, should take an effort to demarcate the boundaries of the subject. The exercise is necessary in order to refresh where we are. The exercise is much more complex since the 1970s, and it might well be that now that there are no boundaries and Sikh studies is everywhere and everything. But I think it will be a very helpful exercise for young scholars and emerging academics in the field. Secondly, and this is a personal preference, I hope that the young scholars who are emerging will address some of the major serious gaps in the history, politics, and the sociology of modern Sikh life. Yesterday, I mentioned the partition as a yawning gap in the scholarship on Sikhs. The others include, for example, the sociology of the community in post-independence India, and more importantly, how Sikhs have been integrated into independent India. I was struck when I was doing my work on Sikh nationalism to find there's hardly anything on the subject, and remarkably, there are strong continuities between how the British integrated Sikhs into colonial India and how the Indian state has segmentedly incorporated Sikhs or integrated Sikhs socially and politically into post-independence India. And the current difficulties that we see among the community in India are centered around this integration being focused on agriculture and the army, both of which are unraveling now. Finally, I hope young scholars will address the increasing disjunction between the theoretical sophistication of the subject of Sikh studies and the condition of the Sikh subject itself, especially in India today. Scholarship should not be an end in itself, and I'm sure Guru Nanak would have wished that scholarship must, in some measure, benefit the community and, to use the Sikh function of seva, serve the community even if the results of that scholarship are uncomfortable. In the 40 years that I've been involved in the subject, I've endeavoured to ensure that both Sikhism and Sikhs are not seen as being on the wrong side of history. I hope my scholarship and this award would go some way in confirming that. Once again, I'm very honoured to have received this award, and I accept it in the spirit that it's given to me. Thank you.
The Dr. Jasbir Singh Saini Endowed Chair in Sikh and Punjabi Studies honors Gurharpal Singh with a Lifetime Achievement Award for his distinguished contribution to the Punjab Research Group in the UK to promote Sikh and Punjab studies. Riverside, California, Saturday, May 8th, 2021. Congratulations, Gurharpal.
Thank you, Peshora. I'm delighted to accept this award, and I should treasure it very much. Thank you.
Hello, good morning, everyone. Our next honoree is Dr. Pritam Singh. Dr. Pritam Singh has a Doctor of Philosophy from the University of Oxford and is Professor Emeritus at Oxford Brookes Business School. He has held the visiting positions at the University of Oxford, Lomonosov Moscow State University, JNU Delhi, and the University of Uberlandia in Brazil. Reviewing his critically acclaimed book, Federalism, Nationalism, and Development, India and the Punjab Economy in Economic and Political Weekly, the late Professor Ajit Singh of Cambridge University described this work as one of those rare academic publications that have the potential to change history. Professor Singh was awarded the Distinguished Achievement Award in Political Economy of the 21st century by the World Association of Political Economy at its 10th World Forum in Johannesburg in June 2015. And we'd like to honor him for his contributions to the Punjab Research Group. Dr. Pritam Singh, the stage is yours.
Yes, I start with thanking Professor Peshora Singh for the honor which is being bestowed on me. I think my previous colleagues, Eleanor and Gurharpal, have mentioned many things about PRG, which I endorse. And it's indeed very good that you thought about it, and we really appreciate about this. A few things I'd like to say about PRG is that the unique success PRG has, that as far as I know, this is the only regionally focused research group in the whole Western world which has been continuing successfully since 1984. As I understand that there was a group kind of formed around Bengal, but it didn't last very much and disintegrated. Subsequently, some people interested in Gujarat study group did get in touch with me, and they started the Gujarat studies group almost in a similar fashion, but I haven't heard anything. They did 1 or 2 conferences, but haven't heard anything. That's one unique success this research group have had, that it has been continuously doing this work, either 2 or 3 conferences. For the last few years, only 2 conferences. In the beginning, it used to be small seminars, generally for 3 times in a year. And I should also say that in the first few years, Shinder Thandi played a very critical role as a convener, and of course he was supported by Darshan, Tatla, Eleanor, Gurharpal. Later on, I and Ian, Talbot, we joined, and 6 of us worked very well in different ways. Just one thing about my contribution I want to point out is that in 1994, the Punjab Research Group, which also had another name called Association of Punjab Studies for the purpose of registration in the journal, I was the conference convener of the first international conference on Punjabi identity. And as far as I know, that has been the only conference, international conference on Punjabi identity in a global context. And that led to the publication of an edited book by me and Shinder Thandi, Punjabi Identity in a Global Context, which has gone through a 2nd edition. And 2nd edition is also kind of sold out, probably come out in a 3rd edition. For the last, and I should also mention that after Shinder, Pippa Vardi played a very important role for many years for running the Punjab Research Group. For the last about 10 years, Punjab Research Group has more or less moved to Oxford. And I want to emphasize a few things, what the Punjab Research Group has done since that time, instead of focusing on my kind of contribution to the scholarship of Punjab and Sikh studies in the limited amount of time. But before I do that, I also want to say thanks and convey this and acknowledge this, that the contribution of some of my own students in successfully running the Punjab Research Group at Oxford, especially Rajman, Nadia Singh, Priya Atwal. She's not directly my student, but I have supported her, Radha Khurana, and Geeta Sinha. Apart from Geeta Sinha, all of them have done or about to complete their PhDs and Punjab studies and produce wonderful work, including one joint paper which I and Nadia have written and got published in World Development, which is the leading development study journal in the world. Now, coming to Oxford, there are three things I want to emphasize about the Punjab Research Group. One, that it has expanded and matured. Second, that it has had some new initiatives. And third, that it's now institutionally embedded. First, on the expansion. What do I mean by expansion and maturing? Earlier, Punjab Research Group was more an informal group of 20, 30 people who will discuss between themselves who will speak next time, and 3 people or 4 people will be kind of picked up, and then something else will come up. Very good papers, but it was more or less very much contained within the UK and very much contained within a small group of people who interacted with each other. It has expanded enormously since it has come to Oxford. Now what we have to do, we hold 2 conferences in a year. We did start with 3, but it has more crystallized into 2 conferences. One in the last week or last Saturday of March, and one on the last Saturday of October. Dates are fixed, more or less carrying on the tradition of the Punjab Research Group from the previous years. Now, what we found is that the interest has grown so much that we first give a call for papers. And it's very interesting, sometime up to 35 to 40 abstracts are submitted to present their papers. Then there is a space only for about 12 presentations. So we have to be very, very strict in selecting those. And that's one, that it expanded. And these contributions come not only from the UK, which was mainly the thing which happened earlier, but they come from India, Pakistan, China, Japan, Canada, USA, and sometime from European countries. They have come, a number of European countries. So one, it has expanded, and it has matured, that the field has expanded in many different ways, which were not the case in the period before. Second thing which I want to mention about this is that the conference reports on the conferences get wide publicity in the media, in the print media in India and Pakistan, to some extent in UK, but also in the radios, interviews in Canada and this country, and in India, and sometime in social media, YouTube video interviews with the people who have participated in the conferences who have won the awards. So that's one which I want to emphasize, that it expanded and matured and developed. And as a result of that, PRG is very widely known, very, very well known in the leading universities in Delhi and Punjab, and in the Pakistan, Punjab, and I believe in most universities in UK, where there is any interest in Punjab and Sikh studies, and hopefully some universities in Canada and America, and of course in isolated cases in Europe and China and Japan and Singapore as well. So that's about the expansion and the maturity of the PRG. Second, we made a new initiative after PRG moved to Oxford. We have instituted what we call Best Doctoral Student Presentation Award, which is that those who present the papers at the PRG conferences, those who are doing PhD, they haven't completed the PhD, but they're doing the PhD, they present on their paper, and the best paper out of them is selected, who's given a cash award and also a certificate. And in some cases where the second presentation, which is judged by the judges, panel of judges, was very close to, we also give a commendation certificate. And by now, 7 people have received this award. And these awardees come from UK, India, and Pakistan. And this actually has led to widening the interest of students who are doing PhD into presenting their abstract. And if they don't succeed first time, they apply second time, and then trying to get the award. And that has raised the prestige of the PRG. And this fund has very well established now. And we have enough funds, even if no other donations are solicited, it can last for 10 to 12 years. We already have that much money in the fund. So that's one initiative. And this has played a very important role. All those who awarded this, they tell us that when they submit their CVs, and almost 3 or 4 of them have already got jobs as lecturers or research fellows, that this has played a very important role to have an award, which is the best doctoral student presentation award at an international conference. The third point which I want to emphasize about PRG is that now it's institutionally embedded. That after coming to Oxford Brookes Business School has supported it for many, many years. But for the last few years, it has also been supported by the South Asia cluster at Wolfson College and Asian Studies Center at St. Anthony's College. Barbara Harris White at Wolfson and Fazil Devji at St. Anthony's have extended us a lot of support, financial, administrative, logistical support. And PRG conferences are a part of the regular circle of the South Asia Research Cluster work at Wolfson College and the Asian Studies Center at St. Anthony's College. And that has also made it widely known, because when they circulate the information of their work, the Punjab Research Group conferences are also circulated as a part of that. We were planning to hold a very big conference on Guru Nanak International Conference. Excellent papers were coming for that, including some from people who are in the Punjab Research Group, who are going to be contributing, but because of COVID, we could not do that. I will just take the last 1 or 2 minutes to reflect on my work. I don't want to spend too much time on that, because it is mainly about PRG. My attitude has been, one, to situate Sikh studies in the larger framework of Punjab studies. I don't see Sikh studies as a separate and an exclusive subject from Punjab studies. Second, that I had been also trying to look at Punjab studies with the viewpoint of understanding development in Punjab as a part of the growth of Indian capitalism and global capitalism, especially the global challenges humanity is facing, the climate change. So ecological perspective has been very central, and it's been growing as a part of that. I've recently completed a paper on Marxism and Sikhi, which is again a reflection on the Sikh religion from a Marxist perspective, from a socialist egalitarian perspective. It's coming out in a book next year on Marxism and religion, where all the world religions from a Marxist perspective will be evaluated. And I was a bit disappointed and also felt that more work needs to be done. There's not even a single book kind of reflecting from a Marxist viewpoint on the whole heritage of Sikhism. There are articles, there are books on the movement. Gurharpal has already written a book, Bhagwan Josh has written a book, but no theoretical work engaging with the teaching of Guru Granth Sahib and looking at Marxist reflection. And this is one work which I plan to do. I have been making a very critical study and faithfully of Guru Granth Sahib. I plan to write a book. That's one area. And secondly, the farmers movement, which has come up. Again, I have given lectures on this, and a new paper is coming, which is jointly written with my daughter, Tanya Singh, who studied at Oxford, and my wife, Dr. Meena Danda, who's a professor of philosophy and cultural politics at University of Wolverhampton. 3 of us jointly have written a paper on the farmers movement. Again, situating farmers movement in the context of Indian capitalism and global capitalism and the developments in agriculture. It's coming out in a journal published from America called Capitalism, Nature, Socialism. So that's the kind of perspective which I want to pursue and situate Sikh and Punjab studies in that global context. So I again want to reiterate my thanks to Pashara Singh, and I'm very happy that all 6 of us, who we haven't met for quite some time, we are here together, and hopefully we will be, and in 3 years' time we'll be celebrating the 40th anniversary of the founding of the Punjab Research Group. So thank you very much Pishora Singh for creating this opportunity and honoring all 6 of us. Thank you very much.
The Dr. Jasbir Singh Saini Endowed Chair in Sikh and Punjabi Studies honors Pritam Singh with a Lifetime Achievement Award for his distinguished contribution to the Punjab Research Group in the UK to promote Sikh and Punjab studies. Riverside, California, Saturday, May 8th, 2021. Congratulations, Pritam Singh.
Thank you very much again, and really appreciate it and value it.
Congratulations once again, Dr. Pritam Singh. Our next honoree, Dr. Ian Talbot, is Professor of Modern South Asian History and Director of Center for Imperial and Post-Colonial Studies at the University of Southampton, where he was also formerly head of history. Educated at Royal Holloway College, University of London, he was one of the founding editors of the International Journal of Punjab Studies. He has written and edited numerous books and articles on Punjab, the partition of India, and the modern history of Pakistan. His most recent works include The History of British Diplomacy in Pakistan, Colonial Lahore, A History of City and Beyond, A History of Modern South Asia, Politics, States, and Diasporas. Congratulations on your achievements, and I would like to invite you to share a few words, Dr. Ian Talbot.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Professor Pishora Singh and your colleagues for honouring me with this Lifetime Achievement Award. I greatly appreciate it, and thank you for that and for this opportunity to just make a few reflections about my contributions to the field of Punjab studies and how they intersect with much of the pioneering work at the Punjab Research Group. And of course, the conferences which were mentioned, and also, of course, the journal. I think that what really struck me when I first became involved with the Punjab Research Group was the fact that here was a group of people across discipline, and I'd always been used to working very much within the discipline of history, but these were people from across different disciplines who were working together in order to really help young scholars, as well as those who are more established, to produce work on aspects of Punjab society, economy, history, religion. And in a sense, this was a unique group of people at a unique time, because it was a stage really when many of what are now well-established subfields of South Asian studies were really coming into being. Everyone knows now about the field of partition studies. Everyone knows about diaspora studies. Obviously, Punjab and Sikh and Punjab studies have become institutionalized and established in the decades since. But really, at the time that I was first involved, these were all in embryo. And I think that many of the future developments in these fields were greatly assisted by the work of the Punjab Research Group and the opportunities that it provided really for people to try out ideas. I think that's always very important. Often for younger scholars, it can be very intimidating to be presenting, particularly before more senior people within their field. And often it's not a collegial environment for them to try out new ideas. And I think that right from the beginning, the Punjab Research Group sort of created this environment which is being carried on, where that kind of exploration of work in progress, of taking the first steps in the academic field, and getting feedback also in a way which is helpful and not overwhelming. I think all of those elements were very much there. And also, I think that what was important in the early development of the Punjab Research Group, and I know Shinder's probably talked about this yesterday, but the conferences which could bring together people perhaps in the UK that weren't able easily from Pakistan and India to come together within the subcontinent to discuss common interests in the fields of studying the region. And that's always been very valuable. And certainly in my own work, I've always tried to make sure that I didn't just produce work that was Pakistan oriented or Indian oriented or Punjab oriented, but work that sometimes had a diasporic dimension, sometimes had a Pakistan dimension, but still looking perhaps at the role of Punjab within Pakistan and Pakistan politics and development. And certainly in the colonial context, looking at some of the possibilities in the late colonial period that were on offer for the Punjab region, but then were in a sense snatched away by all India developments. So that those were the kind of things which interested me in the Punjab Research Group from the outset. This reaching across boundaries of religion, boundaries of geography, boundaries of nation states, even when those states could sometimes be locked in conflict. And indeed, perhaps to see Punjab as a bridge rather than a divide, looking back at the Great Divide, sometimes always emphasize partition in that way, but there are other ways of looking at Punjab's role and perhaps its future within the subcontinent. I think the other thing which impressed me in terms of the role of the Punjab Research Group as it developed was the fact that it encouraged members to do academic collaborations, which they wouldn't necessarily have done. I've collaborated certainly in the past with Shinder Thandi in looking at the global dimensions as well as the subcontinental dimensions of migration in the Punjab region. I've worked on Punjabi identity and also, of course, in other ways with Gurharpal, particularly our book on partition. And I think that that was a very fruitful academic collaboration that came out of the Punjab Research Group. And of course, I worked with Darshan in producing the Punjab bibliography, which at its time was a pioneering resource for people to know what had been published in articles, in books, and in theses on Punjab. So academic collaborations came out of the Punjab Research Group. Opportunities for new scholars to emerge came out of it. The opportunities to bring people together from India and Pakistan came out of it. I think also there was the opportunity to bring together these new disciplines, as I say, that were emerging in diasporic studies, in partition studies, in Punjab Sikh studies. And I think that all of those things are really contributions which people should, one, have pride in, and also perhaps look back on and see what lessons can be learned from those experiences. Just one final point, which I think is important going forward, is the fact that obviously the opportunities for collaboration across disciplines, opportunities for collaboration in terms of perhaps even new developing areas of disciplines are going to be there for Punjabi scholars. I'm just thinking of the growing importance of borderland studies, something which certainly Ilyas Chatter is making major contributions in terms of the Punjab border after a partition, and the fact that it was actually in many respects not a hard border, which is sometimes put forward, but quite porous, and that there were these interconnections. So I think that Punjab studies will be broadening out and further connecting with these emerging disciplines in the years going forward. So once again, I'm very honored to accept this award, and I very much thank Professor Peshawar Singh for organizing this event, and I'm delighted, as I say, to be able to be back together, albeit on screen, with people who made a pioneering contribution in the United Kingdom in the field of Punjab and Sikh studies. Thank you very much.
The Dr. Jasbir Singh Saini Endowed Chair in Sikh and Punjabi Studies honors Ian Arthur Talbot with a Lifetime Achievement Award for his distinguished contribution to the Punjab Research Group in the UK to promote Sikh and Punjab studies. Riverside, California, Saturday, May 8th, 2021. Congratulations, Ian.
Thank you.
Congratulations once again, Dr. Talbot. Our next honoree, Dr. Shinder Singh Thandi, also delivered an extremely informative presentation yesterday and took us through the history of Sikh studies over the years and shared his personal reflections with us. Dr. Thandi teaches in the Department of Global Studies at the University of California, Santa Barbara. He's the founder and editor of the Journal of Sikh and Punjab Studies and has published many journal articles and book chapters on Sikh and Punjabi migration and on different dimensions of Sikh diaspora and homeland relations. He's the co-author of A South Asian History of Britain, 4 Centuries of Peoples from the Indian Subcontinent. He has also co-edited Punjabi Identity in a Global Context with fellow honoree, Dr. Pritam Singh, and People on the Move, Punjabi Colonial and Post-Colonial Migration, edited with another fellow honoree, Dr. Ian Talbot. He is currently editing a special issue of the Journal of Sikh and Punjab Studies on the farmer agitation to be published in fall 2021 and finishing a book project on the Sikh diaspora. Congratulations, Dr. Thandi, on your achievements, and I would like to invite you to share a few words about the Punjab Research Group.
Thank you, Tejpan. Well, obviously, I'm extremely honored to be achieving this award. I'm the last speaker, the time is getting on, and I really want to endorse everything that has been said before. It's really, you know, there is actually a whole book to be written on the sort of rise, the evolution, and the current state of the Punjab Research Group. So it's a project, I think, that some maybe a grad student will take up in the future. We have all the documents available, all the sort of 45 plus working papers are actually were delivered at the different PRG meetings. So, you know, as Pritam says, we've come a long way. You know, we used to meet, we started by meeting in each other's houses, 4 or 5 people, 8 people. It became bigger. Then we moved to university campuses, mostly at country at the beginning, but it's really great that we now have a position. We now have a position at Wolfson College, Oxford. So really, so there's not really much what I really want to add. I want to make one correction and one possibly comment. So the correction is, this is sort of the introduction that Peshawar Singh gave. The Punjab Research Group predates Operation Blue Star. it's not an outcome of Operation Blue Star. The Punjab Research Group came out from a meeting which took place after a conference that was held at Coventry University. It was a conference arranged by the Students' Union of Coventry University and also the Commission for Racial Equality, I think the Leicester branch, I think, at that time. So, and there was a lot of discussion at that time about rising communal violence in Punjab. So we're talking about March, April time. And that's when the conference took place. And it was a meeting among really 5, 6, sort of 6, 7 graduate students at that time, including, you know, Eleanor, Gurharpal, myself, you know, and Darshan. And also Parminder Bachu was there. I remember Professor Aftab Bra was there, and they have supported us through all this time. So, you know, it's been a sort of so I think for the in terms of history, having a correct history, you know, we predate Operation Blue Star. We are not a response to it. I think minor point, but I think is an important point in terms of getting the history right. So that was just a little correction. Of course, you know, we promoted dialogue across the 3 Punjabs. We've you know, brought scholars in. We've held meetings overseas. Started the journal, etc. So my second point really relates to the journal, which came out of the Punjab Research Group after 10 years of the working of the Punjab Research Group. Now, you know, we are a very, very marginal field, and you know, and any marginal field has to go through tremendous amounts of struggles. So just give you maybe a slight insight into why the International Journal of Punjab Studies, that's how it started in 1994, transforms into the Journal of Punjab Studies, and now the Journal of Sikh and Punjab Studies. Now, this is nothing to do, you know, this is very much to do with the struggles of trying to keep alive a marginalized field. I didn't particularly like the comment about the comment that was made earlier about, you know, there are some journals that can be academic, some journals maybe are not academic, because, you know, an academic journal is something that has to be published by an academic publisher. Well, that's a debatable point. We started with an academic publisher. Okay, the 6 people on the editorial board contributed out of their own pockets to Sage. We paid money to Sage to publish the journal. We had a 5-year agreement. It continued. We want to renew the agreement. They wanted more money. Okay, so and this is the story of struggle in a marginalized field. Okay, and we tried very hard. We approached other publishers. They want money. No publisher publishes a journal without giving them a massive subsidy. They're profit maximize, you know, they're sort of, they're profit organization, profit-making organizations, not in public service. So, you know, yes, is it only a journal which has an academic publisher is academic? Others maybe are not academic. Well, that's something that we can discuss. Just 1 or 2 other points. I would also like to, you know, here mention the contribution of Pippa Verdi, and one of the ways in Pippa sort of contributed when she was a convener was to set up actually a website. We never had a website. Now we have a Punjab Research Group website, which sort of posts the information. Always, you know, since it's a voluntary undertaking, you know, it's not always up to date as we may expect in a sort of a website in a sort of professional setting. So I think I'd like to also you know, sort of she needs to be also mentioned for her contribution. I think, so just 2 or 3 points in terms of what we've done. PRG has always been an inclusive group. It has never excluded anybody. Anybody has been able to come and present their papers. It's been totally voluntary undertaking. So people have given their time, have given money, etc., to be part of this group, which has that sort of, I talked about yesterday, about having a common purpose. The common purpose is to promote Punjab studies, Sikh and Punjab studies. So it's a group that is trying to globally connect. Something I couldn't talk about yesterday, but this gulf that has emerged between scholarship that's going on in Punjab and the scholarship in the diaspora. I raised this issue whether, I sort of said, is the Center for Sikh Studies moving to the diaspora? That was the context and I was talking about. So, we are going strength to strength. It says, I've spent almost all my life with the PRG, except for the last, unfortunately, for the last 4 or 5 years since I moved to the USA. And we'll keep involved in that. And I think since we do not have any endowed position in the UK, I think the contribution of the Punjab Research Group must be seen in that particular light. So I'm very honoured and I'm very thankful for this recognition of the work towards promoting Sikh and Punjab studies. Thank you.
The Dr. Jasbir Singh Saini Endowed Chair in Sikh and Punjab Studies honors Shinder Singh Thandi with a Lifetime Achievement Award for his distinguished contribution to the Punjab Research Group in the UK to promote Sikh and Punjab studies. Riverside, California, Saturday, May 8th, 2021. Congratulations, Shinder.
Thank you. Thank you.
Congratulations, Dr. Thandi. Moving on, the next person we would like to acknowledge and award is Dr. Darshan Singh Tatla. Dr. Darshan Singh Tatla has been a fellow in the Department of Punjab Historical Studies. Sorry about that. Dr. Darshan Singh Tatla has been a fellow in the Department of Punjab Historical Studies at Punjabi University, Patiala in India. His work covers a large body of publications focused especially on the academic study of the worldwide Sikh diaspora. His books include The Sikh Diaspora, The Search for Statehood, Sikh Diaspora Philanthropy, Global Giving for Local Good, Sikhs in Britain, The Making of a Community. He also edited 2 seminal annotated bibliographies of sources on the worldwide Sikh diaspora, Sikhs in North America and Sikhs in Britain.
We would like to mention that Dr. Tatla recently had a medical condition, he suffered a stroke. So that's also the reason, he may have been difficulty to speak. Anyhow, we recognize his contribution to the Punjab Research Group, and we honored him in 2017. And we have shown that ceremony, where Professor Van Dusenbury is handing over to Professor Darshan Singh Tatla, the award at that time. So we again recognize his contribution and honorably mention his name at this time. Thank you, Dr. Tatla, and we wish you all the best, speedy recovery and good health. Stay blessed and safe. Thank you very much.
And congratulations once again to all of you, and thank you for your contributions to the field of Sikh and Punjab studies.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.